Have you ever wondered where money comes from? Not from your job or the bank, but where did the idea of money even begin? It's a story that's far more fascinating and, frankly, more important than most of us realize. It's a tale about trust, power, and how a simple tool for trade evolved into a complex system of control. Let's rewind the clock way back before coins jingled in pockets or paper notes were folded in wallets. Before money, there was barter. If I had a surplus of grain and you had extra wool, we could trade. Simple, right? Well, not always. What if you didn't need my grain? What if I thought your wool wasn't worth as much as my harvest? Bartering required what S called a double coincidence of wants. We both had to want what the other had at the same time and agree on the value. It was inefficient and limited the scale of trade and economic growth. Humanity needed a better solution. So, we started using commodity money. This wasn't money as we know it, but rather items that had intrinsic value. In ancient China, it was cowrie shells. In Rome, soldiers were sometimes paid in salt, which is where the word salary comes from. Cattle, grain, and spices were all used as early forms of money. These items worked because they were widely desired and relatively durable. They solved the barter problem, allowing for more complex transactions. But they had their own issues. Imagine carrying a cow to the market to buy bread. Not very practical. Plus, commodities could spoil, be difficult to divide, and their value could fluctuate wildly. The next great leap was precious metals. Gold and silver were rare, durable, easily divisible, and beautiful. Their value was recognized across different cultures. Around 600 BC in Lydia, what is now modern-day Turkey, a revolutionary idea took hold. Standardized coins. Lydians started stamping lumps of electrum, a natural alloy of gold and silver, with an official seal. This guaranteed the weight and purity of the metal. Suddenly, you didn't have to weigh the metal for every transaction. You could just count the coins. This was a game changer. Supercharged commerce, allowing trade to flourish like never before. The power, however, began to subtly shift. The authority that stamped the coin, the king, or the state, was the one guaranteeing its value. For centuries, this was the system. The value of money was tied directly to the precious metal it contained or represented. This is known as representative money. If you had a paper certificate, it was essentially an IOU for a specific amount of gold or silver held in a vault. You could, in theory, walk into a bank and exchange your paper money for physical gold. This system, known as the gold standard, anchored the currency to something real and finite. It placed a natural limit on how much money a government could create. They couldn't just print more unless they had more gold to back it up. This kept a check on their power. But this system also had its limitations. Economic growth could be constrained by the slow pace of gold discovery. And in times of war or crisis, governments felt restricted. They needed to spend more than they had in gold reserves to fund their efforts. This tension between the discipline of the gold standard and the desires of the state set the stage for the biggest change in the history of money. The 20th century was a period of immense upheaval. 2. World wars and the Great Depression rocked the global financial system. During these crises, many countries temporarily suspended the gold standard to print the money they needed. The final break came in 1971, the United States. Facing economic pressures from the Vietnam War and growing domestic spending, unilaterally severed the US dollar's link to gold. Since the dollar was the world's reserve currency, this one decision effectively ended the gold standard for the entire planet. And just like that, the world entered the age of fiat currency. The word fiat comes from Latin, meaning let it be done by decree. Fiat, money, the dollars, euros, and yen we use today has value simply because the government declares it does, and because we, the people, have faith in that government and collectively agree to accept it as a medium of exchange. It's not backed by gold, silver, or any physical commodity. Its value is based on trust. This shift had monumental consequences. It untethered governments from the physical constraints of gold. Central banks could now create money out of thin air with just a few keystrokes on a computer. This gave them an incredible new power, the ability to manage the economy by controlling the money supply. They could stimulate growth by increasing the amount of money in circulation or fight inflation by reducing it. Proponents argue this flexibility is essential for navigating the complexities of a modern economy. It allows for responses to recessions and financial crises that weren't possible under the rigid gold standard. But this newfound power came at a cost. With the ability to create unlimited amounts of money, the temptation for governments to spend beyond their means became immense. Instead of raising taxes, which is politically unpopular, governments can simply borrow money that the central bank creates. This process, often called quantitative easing, or more simply money printing, leads to an expansion of the money supply. When the supply of money increases faster than the production of goods and services, the value of each individual dollar, pound, or euro decreases. This is inflation. It's a hidden tax that quietly erodes the purchasing power of your savings. The $10 you saved 10 years ago buys significantly less today, not because the goods are better, but because the money is worth less. This disproportionately hurts savers, retirees, and those on fixed incomes. The power to create money became the power to redistribute wealth, often silently and without public consent. The link between the value you create through your work and the money you hold has been weakened. Furthermore, this system creates a cycle of debt. Cheaper, more abundant money encourages borrowing by individuals, corporations, and especially governments. Global debt levels have exploded to astronomical figures. This makes the entire financial system more fragile, dependent on a continuous flow of newly created credit. And who manages this system? A small group of unelected central bankers and policymakers making decisions in closed rooms that affect the financial well-being of billions. The control over the very essence of our economic lives has been centralized in the hands of a few. So, where does that leave us, the people? We went from a world of direct barter to money backed by real assets, to a system based purely on faith in institutions. While this system has enabled incredible economic expansion, it has also concentrated immense power and introduced new forms of instability. The value of our work, our savings, and our future is now deeply intertwined with the decisions of central planners. This isn't a call to go back to bartering or carrying gold bars. It's a call for awareness. Understanding the history of money is understanding the history of power. It prompts us to ask critical questions. What controls our money? How are their decisions made? Who benefits from the current system? As new technologies like cryptocurrencies and decentralized finance emerge, they challenge this very paradigm, proposing a world where money might once again be separated from the state. They reignite the ancient debate. Should money be a tool of the people or an instrument of control? The story of money is still being written, and the next chapter depends on the choices we make and the systems we decide to trust. Thanks for watching, and if you found this journey through history insightful, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more.